Manisha, well, let's stay with the commodity space. And Rahul Jain, a metal analyst, joins us with his call on the metal sector. Hi, Rahul. Good morning and good to see you, Ben. Well, what are you making of all this entire disruption that we're seeing, the sanctions that have been put on Russian metal as well? It's likely to be short-lived, or do you think because as it is, there was a bit of a supply-demand gap, that it could be more long-lasting and more positive for some of these companies?
So if you see, a lot of the projections are quite robust for especially aluminium, copper. All of these are also very, helpful in the energy transition theme, which is ongoing, and also there is a lot of the EV, as all of them require a lot of the base metals. So and also typically there is a repricing which happens every few years. So we're kind of getting into that phase right now. And if you track especially the large base metal producers globally, the profitability isn't really very high to justify a lot of reinvestment. So this kind of pricing surge, I think, will only spur some kind of a reinvestment back into adding new capacities. So typically these are like 4, 5, 10-year kind of events which happen. And I think the pricing is really indicating that there is a lot of demand-supply mismatch which we are getting into as we move on. And which is some kind of catch-up has happened. So we've seen a kind of a 10% rally over the last few weeks. And definitely Indian metal producers are quite profitable. They are way up the cost curve. So we can see a lot of, earnings growth, very significant earnings growth actually coming on from here. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Rahul, and just to alert our viewers that in fact Rahul is now independent, and obviously investing and has a call on metals as well. Rahul, since you're saying that, there'll be a bit of a spurt, we've already seen aluminium prices move up. But from yesterday's high as well, if I look at it, they did come off the highs. What kind of a range do you expect aluminium prices to settle at? Because that's the one that's really driving stocks like Nalco, Vedanta, Hindalco. And what would be your pick among the three?
So see, for example, India, we produce about between 4.5 million tons of aluminium. And in the global context, we're still less, around 5 to 7% of global production. But in the terms of cost curve, the Indian aluminum producers especially are very profitable, largely because they're fully integrated. They have they have their own alumina production. They have their own coal mining also in some cases. So in terms of pricing, obviously these are determined by mostly global factors. The recent price increase was largely because of Russian metal not being allowed to trade in LME after a particular date. So all those events are pushing prices higher, and especially for India, especially in case of Vedanta, they are going to add a lot of coal mining capacities. So you can look at them doing more than $1,000 EBITDA per ton very soon. Hindalco will probably cross that level at this point because the pricing increase that we've seen. But again, with Hindalco, there is a slight of the earnings are also determined by by the Novelis operation, which is not a pure play metal in that sense, more of a converter. In case of Nalco, they are actually constrained by capacity, so they are not really added any smelting capacity for at least last more than 10 years. And they don't have any plans. They're focusing more on the alumina side of the business, where they're going to add 1 million ton alumina capacity. They are into two mines actually, because when I met them a few years, more than 2-3 years ago, so they were deciding whether they want to add a smelting capacity. So for example, they are less than 500,000 ton. The biggest player in aluminium is actually Vedanta. They are about 2.3 million, and they have a 500,000 ton capacity coming in.
What is the preference? Right. Well, what is the preference, Rahul?
Vedanta definitely on the top of the pack, because there is a very big operating leverage as well as financial leverage that we can see over there. And in terms of operating leverage, they are adding a coal mine, and also they're increasing the alumina capacity. So for them, for example, the last quarter, the EBITDA per ton was lower than $600, and it has the potential to go above $1,000. So the EBITDA per ton, actually, the swing can be quite massive. So, and in case of like Hindalco, like I said, it's more of a converter. So you can't expect earnings to have a quantum jump like what we can see in Vedanta. And
yeah. Sorry, hi, morning. I just had a follow-up on Nalco. You were talking about the projections there. But if you look at the stock, right, it's had a dream run. In the last 6 months, the stock is up over 60%. Do you see more upsides on the stock? And if yes, what is the kind of target price that you're looking at?
So actually, what we've seen is in some of the, for example, Hindustan Copper. If you see, they really don't have a lot of copper production, but somehow, I mean, the stock, because of there's only kind of copper play, we've seen a very disproportionate run in the stock price. So, for example, Nalco also probably can exhibit those characteristics because their government holding has reached to its limit. You know, they can't go below 50%, and so it's a bit of a it can look far more overpriced, I would say, because the business doesn't have that size to justify a market cap beyond the point. You know, so I would see maybe like another 10%, but it's when prices do well, people really disproportionately rate the stock. So I would think in this whole space, Vedanta has the largest room for upside because they have a very large stake in Hindustan Zinc as well, which is one of the world's largest zinc producers. They have exposure to silver. So even if say they have those breakup proposals, but if you look at that, if you as a minority shareholder, if I get one share of Hindustan Zinc, that itself is worth more than 300 rupees. And then you have aluminium, you have zinc, you have aluminium, you have the copper smelter is kind of shut, but they also have international zinc and they have the power aspects. So there are a lot of things to add up over there. Yeah.
Right. Rahul, so Vedanta's clearly your top pick. You used if a couple of times out there, and with the group, sometimes those ifs, they come with quite a few question marks. But as you said, operating leverage, financial leverage will play out. So we got that out of the way. Any view on Hindustan Copper? Not too many analysts track it. I mean, you have been on the sell side as well in the past. I've not seen a brokerage note on Hindustan Copper for a while, but the street is pricing in the sky, it seems, for the next few years. Your view of 350 rupees?
So actually, how it works is that copper is all over the place because India is a very large importer of copper. We hardly produce, very tiny amount compared to what we import. And the copper assets are also largely with Hindustan Copper. So there have not been too many copper mining auctions. So Hindustan Copper, government has invested in creating new capacity, but copper is very difficult to extract from the ground, like very deep inside the earth. And so obviously, when you know that there is a lot of blue sky valuations start kicking in. So if you bought earlier, probably you can hold, but to get for new investors at this price, there's nothing much to see on the financials. So it's more than 100 P and things like that. It's very, very difficult to make a case that you can have visible cash flows to justify this kind of market cap. So that is sort of a totally different. Very difficult for to be very brave and buy at this level, but that's the way to.
Rahul, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. Good speaking with you and getting a picture overall as far as the metal space is concerned. Hemang is